Science is supposed to have an answer for everything. That idea has become a huge part of the modern world. Whenever archaeologists find something that science cannot properly explain, it usually gets labeled an unsolved mystery until better evidence comes along. But the actuality is that many discoveries still leave experts with more questions than answers. And sometimes, the issue is not a lack of evidence. It is the evidence itself. Certain ancient finds seem so strange, so out of place, that their very existence feels almost impossible. And trust us, by the end of this video, you may start questioning just how much we really know about the ancient Earth. Number 15. The Towers of Silence for Zoroastrians. Death once created a problem that couldn't be solved by burying or burning the body. Earth and fire were sacred, while a corpse was considered impure after death. So, around places like Yazd, Iran, the dead were carried high above the surrounding land to circular structures we now call Towers of Silence. Bodies were placed across the open stone platform, traditionally with men along one section, women in another, and children closer to the center. Sunlight and scavenging birds did what burial and cremation were forbidden to do. Once only bones remained, they were gathered into a central pit inside the tower. The ritual continued in Iran until the 20th century, meaning these places were used much more recently than their ancient appearance suggests. Today, the towers sit empty above the desert. Nothing happens on those platforms anymore, but knowing what took place there makes their silence feel scarily different. Number 14. Elongated ancient skulls. Julio Tello had spent years studying Peru's past when the graves of Paracas gave him something far harder to forget. During excavations in 1928, his team uncovered skulls stretched into unusual shapes, with several reported as noticeably larger than an average human skull. Head shaping itself was nothing extraordinary in ancient societies. Families could bind an infant's head with cloth or boards, slowly changing its form as the child grew, often as a mark of rank or identity. But the Paracas remains refused to leave the conversation there. Claims about heavier bone, unusual proportions, and other anatomical differences pushed them into decades of argument, while similar elongated skulls found across Egypt, Central Asia, and Europe added to the fascination. DNA testing has placed examined Paracas individuals firmly within human populations, dealing a serious blow to alien claims. Even so, their extreme appearance keeps pulling the same question back: why did this community take cranial shaping quite this far? Number 13. The Harakbut face. The Harakbut people did not need outsiders to tell them that this enormous face mattered. For so many generations, their community has known the cliff formation in Peru's Amazon as Rostro Harakbut, also called the face of the Harakbut, and oral tradition connects it with their ancestors. Its enormous eyes, nose, and mouth appear across the rock above a river and waterfall, giving the cliff an almost watchful expression. Here is where certainty starts slipping away. The Harakbut regard the place as culturally important, while debate continues over whether human hands shaped the features or nature produced the resemblance. Claims of tool marks have added another layer to the argument, but no accepted date or archaeological record tells us when any carving might have happened. That leaves the face caught between geology and ancestral memory. Perhaps its meaning was once perfectly understood by those who gathered beneath it. Today, we are left staring back at a face whose story refuses to introduce itself. Number 12. The Temple of Ptolemy IV. A sewage project in Egypt sounds about as far removed from archaeology as we can get. But in 2019, one became the reason a forgotten temple returned to view. Workers digging near Tama in Sohag province struck carved stone and stopped before damaging it. Archaeologists soon uncovered walls carrying the name of Ptolemy IV Philopator, who ruled Egypt between 221 and 204 BCE. His reputation was never especially flattering. Ancient accounts painted him as a ruler drawn toward luxury and entertainment, while trouble grew around his kingdom. But the temple showed another side of his reign, with reliefs depicting the pharaoh making offerings before Egyptian gods. Carved inscriptions and religious scenes had remained beneath the area for roughly 2,200 years. The discovery almost feels unfair to generations of archaeologists who spend careers searching for places like this. One construction crew arrived to install sewage pipes and accidentally brought part of Ptolemy's Egypt back with them. Will we ever understand the ancient Egyptians? Number 11. Vindalev Horde Ole Ginnerup had only recently bought a metal detector when his first serious outing turned into the sort of discovery archaeologists dream about. Near Vindalef, Denmark, he uncovered gold that had been underground for roughly 15 centuries. Archaeologists recovered nearly a kilogram of treasure, including Roman coins and bracteates carrying runes and mysterious images. One inscription became especially important because it contains the earliest known written mention of Odin, pushing evidence for worship of the Norse god back to the early 5th century. Yet nobody knows why such wealth ended up beneath that Danish field. The valuables may have belonged to an immensely powerful local ruler, then been buried during a dangerous period, or offered to the gods. Researchers have also considered the turmoil surrounding the severe climate crisis beginning in 536, when volcanic eruptions darkened skies and devastated communities across Europe. Someone surrendered a fortune here. Whether they expected to recover it, we will never know. Number 10. Indus Valley Civilization and the Indus script. Thousands of Indus symbols have survived, and we still cannot read a single sentence with certainty. They belong to one of the ancient world's greatest civilizations, whose cities spread across areas of present-day Pakistan and India around 4,500 years ago. The markings appear on seals, pottery, tablets, tools, and other objects, usually in extremely short sequences. We recognize hundreds of different signs, and certain combinations appear repeatedly, which is why many researchers think they represent some form of writing. The trouble begins when we try to translate them. No long document has survived. We don't know what language the Indus people spoke, and nothing resembling a Rosetta Stone has ever been found to give us a second version of the same message. Researchers have proposed everything from names and trading information to religious meanings, while some question whether it was writing at all. So an entire civilization left thousands of messages behind, yet after a century of study, their voices remain unreadable. Number 9. Burial site at Fleury-sur-Orne, among the ancient graves uncovered at Fleury-sur-Orne in northern France. One burial refuses to fit neatly into the picture archaeologists expected. The cemetery dates back roughly 6,500 years and contains monumental graves associated mainly with men. But one woman was placed there too, and her grave carried something particularly intriguing: arrowheads. That detail matters because weapons were closely connected with male identity in this burial tradition, making her inclusion difficult to explain. Perhaps she held an unusual position within her community. Maybe the objects reflected status, family ties, or a social role that no longer has an obvious modern equivalent. Researchers cannot simply call her a warrior or queen because the evidence does not go that far. Still, her grave complicates the idea that these ancient roles followed simple rules. Thousands of years later, we have her bones, her burial, and those carefully placed arrowheads, but the reason she was treated differently went to the grave with her. Number 8. Extra digits in Chaco Canyon well. 6 toes would normally be treated as an unusual genetic trait. At Chaco Canyon, they may have carried a very different meaning. Archaeologists studying ancestral Puebloan remains found evidence of polydactyly, a condition that gives a person an additional finger or toe appearing at an unusually high rate within the community. Then there are the footprints. Images of feet with 6 digits appear in Chacoan art, suggesting that the trait was noticed rather than ignored. One burial made the story even stranger. A person with 6 toes had an elaborate anklet placed around the affected foot, as though attention was deliberately being drawn toward it. Researchers have wondered whether these individuals enjoyed special respect, status, or ceremonial importance, although we cannot know precisely how their community understood the difference. That uncertainty is where Chaco becomes fascinating. Their bones tell us the trait was real, and their artwork tells us it mattered. Whatever the 6 digits meant to them is still a puzzle. Number 7. Mawangdui text silk normally disappears long before 2,000 years have passed, which makes what survived inside the Mawangdui tombs especially precious. Excavations near Changsha during the 1970s revealed Lady Dai and members of her family, surrounded by objects preserved with astonishing care. Among them were medical manuscripts describing pathways running through the human body. For decades, scholars mainly connected these writings with the early development of Chinese medicine and acupuncture. Then researchers proposed something far more provocative. Those descriptions may represent anatomical observations of the body itself. If that interpretation holds, the manuscripts could preserve one of humanity's earliest surviving anatomical records. They describe internal roots with enough detail for researchers to compare them with physical structures beneath the skin. Not every scholar accepts the anatomical atlas argument, so the mystery is hardly settled. Still, the possibility changes the conversation completely. Ancient Chinese physicians may have understood far more about internal anatomy than later generations ever gave them credit for. What is your theory about it? Let us know. Number 6. Haicheng Fortress mystery. Hiking has spent centuries surrounded by desert, yet those battered walls once guarded a city that mattered enormously. Better known as Karakoto, or Blackwater City, it rose around the 11th century under the Tangut-led Western Xia Kingdom and became an important stop along the Silk Road. Genghis Khan's forces captured it in 1226, but that was not its ending. Trade continued, families remained, and Mongol rule carried the settlement into another chapter. Then, its fortunes changed. By the Ming period, Karakoto had been abandoned, leaving temples, defensive walls, manuscripts, and broken buildings behind. Archaeologists have recovered remarkable Tangut writings there, giving us pieces of a culture that nearly disappeared from memory. Yet those fragments cannot tell us everything. Why the city finally emptied, what its last residents experienced, and how quickly they left are still debated. Karakoto survived armies and political upheaval, only to lose the one thing that kept it alive: its people. Number 5. Ghost city of Aniani did not slowly fade away. This enormous city was attacked, emptied, damaged, rebuilt, and eventually left with no one to call it home. At its height, more than 100,000 people may have lived behind its walls, surrounded by churches, markets, palaces, and busy streets. Then came 1064, when Seljuk forces captured Ani after a brutal siege. Other invasions and disasters followed, until the once powerful city was deserted by the 1700s. Its ruins still cover a lonely stretch of eastern Turkey, close to the Armenian border. Ani became famous as the city of 1,001 churches, and several remarkable buildings remain, including its cathedral and the miniature mosque. Walking through those ruins today, the strangest part is not what survived, but how much disappeared. UNESCO recognition brought stronger attention to its preservation, yet Ani still feels strangely untouched, a place where an entire city seems to have simply stopped breathing. Number 4. Nazis and reptiles theories. Long after Nazi Germany disappeared, one former American naval engineer began telling a story stranger than anything written about the war. William Tompkins claimed U.S. intelligence had found that German groups were receiving help from non-human beings while developing advanced tech. His account went much further. Tompkins spoke of human-looking Nordics, reptilian beings, secret aerospace projects, and supposed information passed through mediums connected with occult groups such as the Vril Society. These claims became part of a much larger mythology surrounding Nazi experiments after World War II. There is, however, no verified historical evidence that Germany ever contacted aliens, reptilian beings, or anything similar. What gives the story its staying power is the real secrecy surrounding certain German weapons programs, experimental aircraft, and the fascination some Nazi figures had with occult ideas. Those facts left plenty of room for later stories to grow. Tompkins maintained his version until his death in 2017. Whether he believed every detail is one question, proving any of it is another. Number 3. Ancient stronghold of Piruro leaves us with an awkward question. How did people lacking advanced technology build something this ambitious? This little-known site in Peru's Huánuco region carries traces of occupation stretching across thousands of years, with its earliest structures belonging to the Preceramic period, long before pottery became common there. Yet nothing about its architecture feels careless. One fortress rises through several levels, its stone and mud walls arranged with rooms, passages, and exterior access between floors. Whoever planned it clearly understood how to build upward and make limited space work. Later communities continued using the area, eventually carrying its story into the Inca period. Still, the earliest builders remain frustratingly anonymous. They left no written account explaining who they were, what they called this place, or why such a substantial stronghold was necessary. That silence is what gives Piruro its mystery. The building survived well enough to show their skill, but not the people. Number 2. Notre Dame lead sarcophagus beneath the floor of Notre Dame. Workers repairing damage from the 2019 fire came across something that had escaped notice for centuries. A lead coffin lay beneath the cathedral, sealed away among layers of construction belonging to different periods of its long history. Finding a burial there wasn't necessarily surprising. Finding one enclosed in expensive lead was another matter. Someone important had almost certainly been placed inside. Early investigations suggested the burial belonged to a high-status individual, but there was no obvious inscription waiting to provide a name. The coffin had also survived later alterations to the cathedral, including 19th-century heating installations placed nearby. Researchers eventually opened it and began studying the remains for clues preserved in the bones and clothing. The person's age, health, diet, and position in society could all help narrow down their identity. Notre Dame has watched generations of powerful figures pass through its doors. Somehow, one of them ended up beneath its floor, while the story of who they were became separated from their grave. Number 1. Disembodied figurines. 200 Ushapti figurines waiting inside an Egyptian burial chamber would normally point toward the person they were meant to serve after death. At Tanis, however, archaeologists found the servants, but not their master. The figures were carefully positioned across the chamber, with inscriptions and other details connecting them to Pharaoh Shoshenq III. Ushaptis weren't ordinary decorations. Egyptians placed them beside the dead so they could perform duties for their owner in the afterlife, making the missing mummy difficult to ignore. The chamber appears to have been properly prepared, and the figures weren't scattered around as though tomb robbers had simply disturbed everything. One possibility takes us into a troubled period when royal burials were repeatedly threatened. Priests sometimes moved royal remains to safer locations, and something similar may have happened here. Yet Shoshenq III's final resting place has never been settled with complete certainty. His tiny servants remained where they belonged, lined up for an afterlife beside a king who was no longer there. Well, if you found this video interesting, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. Take care, and we'll see you soon.